Welcome, I'm Pete Najarian. This is The Take on a Tuesday after this unbelievable, incredible Monday that we had an explosive move to the upside. Now, a lot of people looked at that move and they said, you know what? That's Jerome Powell. That happened because of 60 minutes. I completely disagree, and here's why. And I talked about this yesterday on the halftime report because I heard everybody saying, well, they've got our back, and that's what the deal was. They've had our back. They do have our back. I'm talking about the Fed. I'm talking about everything from government that they have been doing to try to help people out in any way, shape, or form financially has been thrown at the markets. But we already knew that. Market was up about 200 points. Here was the key, Moderna. And the idea that maybe, just maybe, this is only phase one, but just maybe, there is a vaccine out there with potential, with possibility that might be able to be accelerated in the time frame to maybe even get out into the markets. But still, there is a time frame. That all being said, I think that's when we saw this big spike to the upside. That's when we saw the move that was up 600 points almost right out of the gate from that news. And then we really started to turn and burn to the upside because FOMO, fear of missing out. Everybody all gets into that mode, and we already knew this. We already knew that there were over $4 trillion sitting in money market funds, people that were out of the markets that are not involved in the market, and that's part of why you see a move like we did yesterday. Now, when you start to see a move that's well over 3%, approaching 4% to the upside, that's a pretty tremendous move, and a lot of that, I think, was really based upon the opening up. If you don't believe me, take a look at what was really working yesterday. What was working? Well, you take a look at the airlines and cruise ships. That's really a huge tell on the buying areas for people and which areas, which sectors, which segments of the economy were people putting their money. They're also looking at the hotels. Look at a Marriott yesterday up 17%. When I look at the airlines and cruise lines up 18, 19, some up as much as 21%, that really does say a lot about what the interpretation is, right or wrong, the interpretation of what we had heard early in the trading session that really caused these markets to really rocket to the upside. Industrials were also very strong. Names that have been hit really extremely hard. Name like Boeing, up 13% yesterday. You look at Raytheon, Dow, 3M, you get the idea, all up over 7.5%. So the participation across the board, but the one area that really does stand out, and we all look to it, and so many people want to say, hey, it's dead money, it's this and that. First of all, I don't think they have the full understanding of what's going on in the financial area. Now, yes, there will be loan losses, but the balance sheets are there. These are companies that still do make money. I hear it all the time. Well, they can't make money. Wow. That's really not true. But the reality is, yesterday, the financials were up about 5%. Now, is it an easy environment? Absolutely not. Do they have a lot of difficulties? Have the spreads really gotten tight? Absolutely, across the board, all of that, which is why many of these names, they've had some nice moves to the upside, but generally the move has been to the downside because we know it's a very difficult environment, but that doesn't mean that they can't make money and they're not making money. So that's something I think you really have to dig into and understand a little bit better. But JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Citi, all these names up anywhere from 5% as much as 8% on the day yesterday. So big move there. And energy. We've been talking about this price of oil. It seems like oil not too terribly long ago was in negative territory. Then we were talking about it in the teens. Then we got it into the 20s. And now we're talking about oil into the low 30s. Yesterday trading around 32. So we've really watched this big move to the upside in the price of oil. And with that, you've seen a lot of these energy names participating to the upside. So yesterday you finish up on the Dow 911 points, 911 points, 3.8% move to the upside. S&P up about 3%. What was lagging? Well, the leadership, because the rolling around, and that's probably a good thing. We talk about rotation all the time. Some of that was we weren't seeing as big a moves as we had been seeing out of the big five, and quite honestly, across the board in a lot of the various technology names that have been moving to the upside and the quote-unquote stay-at-home names, the Zooms and some of those. But you still had some nice movement to the upside. They lagged, but it's not like they were in negative territory. The NASDAQ was up nearly 2.5%. So you had names like Apple and Tesla and Facebook and Amazon and Google and some of those. Netflix hitting new highs, but actually finished in the red. So volatility, certainly. It's been there. It's still there. It's been trading yesterday around that 29 level. Today, where are we looking at volatility? still trading around that 29 level. But today we're seeing a pretty interesting market, fairly volatile in the pre-market where we were down 100 plus points. And I think we got even much further than that early on, but then we started to rally up, and the next thing you know it, we're moving and across the green red line there, right there near flat. But quick move to the downside right out of the gate. We saw that. Matter of fact, the early move, you see the Dow, it actually was moving down about 140, 150 points to the downside, down close to 0.6%. But the NASDAQ actually was in positive territory, trading up about 0.25%. You look over the S&P, down about 0.25%. So it gives you some insight into each day the markets and what the interpretations are. You can kind of almost close your eyes. If you know one of the answers of where is the Dow trading, you got a pretty good idea of where the others are. Where's the NASDAQ? And you get a pretty good sense of that just based upon what we've been watching in the marketplace and the flows and the movement that we're seeing there. Now, early on, it's been energy. It was financials slipping about 1% to the downside early on. But a lot of this started to recover, as a matter of fact. We were pushing down pretty significantly. Right now, as I'm looking over at the TV across the way, I'm looking at a NASDAQ that's still up about, call it 0.4%. I'm looking at the S&P with some pressure. I'm looking at the Dow, definitely some pressure, down about 100 plus points. So that's the move. But what is powering the NASDAQ right now? It's actually some very interesting names. Some of the names that we hadn't talked about in a long time, some of the Chinese names, as a matter of fact, like a Baidu, like a NetEase, actually kind of leading right now in terms of pulling up the NASDAQ. But then there's the usual contributors. You've got NVIDIA, which has been a powerful force for a long time in the chip space. AMD, Intel back up and over $61 a share. That moving to the upside. So it's been powerful, and what's really been powerful, the last 4 trading sessions, we have had volumes that have been very, very explosive volumes to the upside. And we have been averaging not quite 32 million, but just off about 32 million contracts per day over the last 4 sessions. And that's been a very, very interesting thing because you look for some support, you look for some volume. Those are some real volumes. Those are tremendous volumes. And we had been in a little bit of a slump in terms of volume. So we started to see this turn about 4 days ago. So we'll see if that continues as well. The themes that play out and how those continue to play out. Those themes that we were seeing where we were watching the final minutes or hours of the day where we were selling off, that has kind of broken away. And now we're going to have to see what the next theme is in terms of the markets and some of the movement there. Now, the VIX still is holding right around that 2930 area. What really stood out for me today, and it's day 2 of this, was Bausch. And we look at a lot of different names, and we look for all the different option paper that we're seeing for some of that unusual option activity that we talk about all the time. But what was really interesting today was yesterday we'd seen some active activity actually in Bausch, which is a name that we do see occasionally, but not as frequently as many of the other names in the medical device space and drug space. But we did see this once again. It was twice in a very short period of time. And today they're buying about 8,000 of next week, not this Friday, but next Friday's 18 strike calls. These are fairly inexpensive in terms of risk reward. As a matter of fact, this is one of the names when Bausch hit yesterday that I actually already had a position. I grabbed a position, so I already have a position today, but I like seeing this confirmation that even more buying coming into Bausch today. So this follows up yesterday's activity that was short-term. These are the ones from yesterday are expiring on Friday. The ones that we're hitting today are the May 29th expiring 18 strike call. So another where we're seeing activity following activity, and we're seeing a lot of that today. We have a lot of great volumes early on. I'm doing this report right now, barely a little over an hour into the trading session, but we are seeing a lot of unusual option activity already, and it's been a very, very active morning. So educate yourself. Understand the risks, but understand how you can use those risks in a much more positive way as well in the derivatives markets and reduce those risks and give yourself an opportunity. But you've got to be educated. Great educators here at Market Rebellion. We're here to help. We're here with the unusual option activity, but we're also here with the educational side, the educational arm, to make sure that people are ready when they actually want to be participating in the markets. And we're trying to do our very best in the growth area that we are. You just heard me talking about it. We continue to see unbelievable numbers and record numbers on the pace of record numbers this year again for the options industry. And that's why we love it so much. Folks, have a great day of trading.